The night above Arvin Station's mining colony was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt heavy, as if the air itself was listening. Mira stood on the edge of the outer platform, her boots resting on the cool steel. She often came here after work. From here, she could see the faint glow of the twin moons, pale and round, hanging over the barren land. Between them stretched a wide canvas of stars, bright against the black. She liked to watch the sky, even though most people said there was nothing to see. The colony was far from any main trade route, and no ships passed by unless they had a reason. The nights were always the same. Until tonight. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks. A faint shimmer, high above the horizon, wavered like heat above sand. It wasn't a star, it was too close. And it wasn't a satellite. It moved, slowly, almost like it was searching. Mira narrowed her eyes. The shimmer pulsed, once, then twice, like a heartbeat in the sky. She frowned. That was strange. She reached for her small wrist scanner, but before she could switch it on, she heard footsteps behind her. Still looking at the stars, Mira? It was Raylan, the quiet engineer who worked in the repair bay. He was holding a metal toolkit in, one hand a small cloth draped over his shoulder. His voice was calm, like always, but his eyes were sharp. She pointed to the shimmer. "Do you see that?" Raylan followed her gaze. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he gave a small nod. "I see it." Her stomach tightened. Most people couldn't see it. She had tried asking a few others before, and they always shrugged, and told her it was nothing. "You've seen it before, haven't you?" she asked. Raylan put down his toolkit and stepped closer to the edge. "Not exactly like this," he said. "But I've been expecting something like it." "Expecting?" she repeated. "How can you expect something like that?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, round device. It looked old, its metal scratched and faded. He pointed it at the shimmer, and the device gave a soft hum. The shimmer pulsed again, this time brighter, and Mira felt a strange pressure in the air, like the moment before a storm. "You felt that?" Raylan asked, watching her face. She nodded. "What is it?" "I don't know yet," he admitted. "But I think it's a message." The word message made her shiver. "From who?" "Not from here," he said simply. "And not for everyone. Only for those who can see it." She looked at him sharply. "You mean people like us?" Raylan's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "Something like that." The shimmer changed. It no longer hung in one place. It began to drift, slowly, toward the east. Mira's pulse quickened. It was almost as if it wanted them to follow. "You're not going to just stand here, are you?" she asked. "I wasn't planning to," he said, glancing toward the repair bay. "My bike is ready." She raised an eyebrow. "Your bike? You mean that old grav bike you've been fixing for years?" Raylan nodded. "It's not just a bike anymore." Before she could ask what he meant, he was already walking toward the lift. Mira hesitated, glancing back at the shimmering light. She had a feeling that if she stayed here, she would never see it again. Her curiosity was stronger than her caution. She followed him. The repair bay was quiet except for the soft hum of cooling engines. The grav bike stood in the center, gleaming under the overhead lights. Mira had seen it many times before, but now it looked different. The body had been polished to a mirror shine, and strange markings glowed faintly along its frame. "What did you do to it?" she asked. "Improved it," Raylan said, running his hand along the side. "The colony's machines aren't built for what we're about to do. This one is." She tilted her head. "And what exactly are we about to do?" Raylan looked at her, his expression calm but his eyes bright with something she couldn't name. "We're going to follow that signal." Her heart skipped. "You mean out there? Past the dome?" Yes, he said simply. Most people never left the dome unless they had official work outside. The desert beyond was empty and silent, stretching for kilometers in every direction. But the way Raylan spoke, it didn't sound like a dangerous journey. It sounded like an invitation. He stepped toward her, close enough for his voice to be low but clear. "You come with me, gorgeous," he whispered, not like a flirt, but like a promise. She froze for half a second. The words felt familiar, as if she had heard them before, maybe in a dream. Before she could think too much, Raylan handed her a light helmet. "We leave now." The bike's engine came to life with a deep, smooth hum that didn't sound like any grav bike she'd heard before. Mira climbed onto the back, gripping the side handles. As the bay doors opened, the cool night air rushed. In outside, the shimmer was still there, waiting above the horizon. With a steady motion, Raylan guided the bike forward. They lifted off the platform, floating into the open night. Behind them, the colony's lights grew smaller. Ahead, the shimmer grew brighter, stretching into a soft ribbon of light across the stars. Mira didn't know where it would lead them, but she felt something she hadn't felt in years, an unshakable sense that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. And deep in her mind, a quiet thought formed. This is only the beginning. The desert stretched out like an endless sheet of silver under the twin moons. The grav bike moved smoothly above the ground, its soft hum blending with the night. Mira sat behind Raylan, her hands resting on the cold side grips. The wind tugged at her hair, carrying the dry scent of sand and stone. She kept her eyes on the strange shimmer ahead. It looked closer now, though it still hovered high in the sky. Its light moved in slow waves like it was breathing. Every few minutes, it pulsed again. 2 short flashes, then 1 long. Mira leaned forward slightly. "It's signaling," she said, her voice just loud enough to be heard over the wind. "I know," Raylan replied without looking back. His tone was calm, but there was a quiet focus in his voice. "You've studied this before," she guessed. A pause. "I've studied things like this," he admitted. "Not exactly this one, but other signals. They always hide in plain sight, waiting for someone who can notice." Mira frowned. "And you think this one is meant for you?" "For us," he said simply. The word us made her chest tighten. She had only met Raylan a few years ago when she started working at the repair docks. They had never been close friends, yet something about him felt familiar, like he had always been part of her life. The bike slowed slightly as they approached a cluster of low hills. The shimmer drifted toward them, almost like it was guiding their path. Raylan adjusted the controls, and the bike glided smoothly between the rocks. "Where exactly are we going?" Mira asked. "There's an old comm tower on the other side," he said. "No one uses it anymore. It might help us read the signal. And if it doesn't, then we keep following." As they rounded the hills, Mira noticed something strange. The shimmer's light seemed to stretch down toward the ground, forming a faint, thin beam that pointed ahead of them. It wasn't bright, but it was visible enough to follow. "It's showing us the way," she said softly. "Yes," Raylan agreed. "It wants us to see it." The comm tower appeared in the distance, a tall, rusted structure with several broken panels. Its base was half buried in sand, and a few cables trailed loose in the wind. No lights, no signs of power. Raylan stopped the bike at the base. They dismounted, the sand crunching lightly under their boots. "This place is dead," Mira said, glancing up at the tower. "It's sleeping," Raylan corrected. He walked to a small access hatch at the side and pulled out a multi-tool from his belt. With a few quick movements, he opened the panel, revealing old circuits covered in dust. He connected a small device. From his toolkit, a round, glowing unit Mira had never seen before. The air shifted. A faint vibration hummed through the ground. Slowly, the tower's antennas began to move, adjusting their angles toward the shimmer. Mira stepped back. "You woke it up." Raylan didn't answer. He was watching the device. After a few seconds, a thin beam of light shot from the tower, connecting directly to the shimmer. The air filled with a soft, rhythmic tone. Low, then high, then low again. "It's a pattern," Mira whispered. "Yes," Raylan said quietly. "It's speaking to us." The tones grew faster, weaving together into a sound that almost resembled words. Mira closed her eyes and listened. It wasn't any language she knew, but the meaning felt close, like a whisper just beyond understanding. "What is it saying?" she asked. Raylan's gaze stayed locked on the shimmer. "It's not speaking with words, it's speaking with intent. It's telling us to move." "Move where?" He turned toward her, his expression unreadable. "Farther than you've ever gone." Mira hesitated. She had left the dome only a handful of times in her life, and each time she had been glad to return. But something about the shimmer made her feel that staying here would be the bigger risk. Before she could decide, the shimmer pulsed brighter than ever, and the tone from the tower changed to a deep, steady hum. "That's our sign," Ryland said. They returned to the bike. As Mira climbed on, Ryland leaned slightly toward her, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "You come with me, gorgeous," he said again, not as a command, but like he was reminding her of a promise they had already made. This time, she didn't freeze. She just nodded. The bike lifted off the sand, and they turned toward the open desert. The shimmer began to drift away, its beam of light sweeping across the ground like a guide. The stars above seemed sharper, brighter, as if watching their journey. Mira kept her eyes on the path ahead, but her mind kept circling back to the strange familiarity of Raylan's words. It felt as though they had shared another life, in another place, where the same promise had been made. They rode for nearly an hour, the shimmer always ahead, the wind rushing past. Then the ground beneath them began to change. The smooth sand gave way to darker rock, cracked and uneven. The shimmer's beam narrowed, leading them toward a jagged ridge. "What's beyond this?" Mira asked. Raylan's answer was simple. "Something no one's seen in a long time." As they approached the ridge, Mira noticed a faint glow between the rocks, different from the shimmer, more like a soft blue haze. The air felt warmer here, and there was a faint scent of metal. The shimmer stopped moving. It hovered directly above the ridge, its light brighter than ever. Raylan slowed the bike and set it down gently. They stepped onto the rocky ground, the blue haze swirling faintly around their boots. Mira tilted her head. "It's almost like the air is alive." Raylan nodded. "We're close. Very close." They climbed the ridge slowly, each step bringing them closer to the source of the blue light. Mira's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the strange sense that she was about to see something that would change everything. And then they reached the top. Beyond the ridge, the ground dipped into a shallow crater. At its center stood a structure, smooth, metallic, and glowing faintly with the same blue haze. It wasn't human-made. Its surface curved in ways that felt both natural and artificial, like it had grown from the ground itself. Mira's breath caught. "What is that?" Raylan didn't answer. He just stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the structure. Above them, the shimmer pulsed once, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. Mira felt it deep inside her chest. Whatever this was, it wasn't the end of their journey. It was the beginning. The air at the ridge felt different. It carried a faint vibration, almost like the ground itself was breathing. The structure in the crater seemed alive, though it made no movement. Its smooth metallic surface caught the twin moon's light, sending ripples of blue across the haze that surrounded it. Mira stood at the edge, her boots gripping the uneven rock. She could hear the soft hum coming from the object. It wasn't loud, but it was steady, calm, like the slow beat of a heart. Raylan stepped forward without hesitation. His boots clicked softly against the rock as he made his way down toward the crater's floor. Mira followed, her eyes never leaving the strange shape. As they got closer, the shimmer above them seemed to respond. It dipped lower, sending another beam of pale light straight onto the structure. The blue haze thickened, curling around the beam like threads being drawn toward it. "This thing," Mira said quietly. "It's not a ship, is it?" Raylan shook his head. "No, I think it's a gate." "A gate to what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he placed his hand flat against the smooth surface. The hum grew louder, and the blue light around them brightened. Mira felt the vibration pass through her body, warm and steady, almost comforting. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then a faint outline began to form on the structure's surface, like a door without seams. It pulsed once, twice, then faded. Again, Rollins stepped back. "It's locked," he said. "Locked how?" "Not with tools, with choice," he replied. "It's waiting for something from us." They both turned their eyes upward. The shimmer was rising again, drifting slowly toward the east. "It's leaving," Mira said. "No," Raylan corrected, climbing back up the ridge. "It's leading us somewhere else. Whatever opens this gate isn't here. Not yet." The bike was still where they had left it, hovering gently above the rocks. Mira climbed on behind Raylan, and within seconds they were moving again, the shimmer's soft glow. Stretching ahead like a quiet path in the sky, the desert beneath them began to change. The rocky ridges flattened into wide plains, and the sand glistened faintly in the moonlight. In the distance, Mira could see faint lights, too far and too faint to belong to the colony. "What's out there?" she asked. "Something old," Raylan said simply. They traveled for hours. The hum of the bike and the whisper of the wind, the only sounds. The shimmer never faded. It stayed ahead, drifting at a pace they could match, but never catch. As the horizon began to brighten with the first light of dawn, the shimmer slowed. It hovered above a dark, low structure half buried in sand. Raylan brought the bike down. "We're here." Mira looked at the structure. It was rectangular, with thick walls and a flat top. It didn't look like anything she had seen before. No doors, no windows, just a smooth black surface. They approached on foot. The ground here was colder, the air still and dry. "What is it?" Mira asked. "A vault," Raylan said after a moment. "I think this is where they kept something safe, something the gate needs." He crouched by the wall, running his fingers along the surface. Then he tapped one corner gently. The sound it made was deep and hollow. "It's not empty," he murmured. Mira circled the structure. "If there's no door, how do we get in?" "That's the question," Raylan replied. The shimmer above them pulsed once. Then the air in front of the vault shimmered faintly, like heat rising from stone. Slowly, an image appeared. Two shapes, standing side by side, hands joined. The image was simple, but Mira understood. "It wants us," she said. "Both of us," Raylan nodded. "Together." They stepped forward, side by side. As they reached the point where the air shimmered, they felt a sudden warmth in their joined hands. The wall in front of them rippled, the solid black surface softening into liquid light. When it cleared, a narrow entrance stood before them, glowing faintly blue. Mira glanced at Rollin. He gave a small nod, and they stepped inside. The vault was dark, but not completely. Thin lines of pale light traced patterns across the walls, slowly shifting like flowing water. The air smelled faintly of metal and something sweeter, like rain after a dry season. At the center of the room stood a pedestal. On it rested a small crystal sphere, its surface alive with swirling blue and white light. Mira stepped closer. "It's beautiful." "It's a key," Raylan said softly. "To the gate? Yes," he replied. "And maybe more." He reached out, his fingers brushing the surface of the sphere. Instantly, the lights on the walls flared brighter, and a soft tone filled the air, a sound that matched the shimmer's earlier pulse. The sphere lifted slightly from the pedestal, floating between them. Mira could feel its warmth against her skin, and for a moment she thought she heard a faint whisper, not in words, but in feeling, like an invitation. Then, as gently as it had risen, the sphere settled back down. The light in the vault dimmed again, but the hum remained. Raylan turned toward her. "We need to take it back to the gate." Mira looked at the sphere. "And what happens when we do?" "We find out what's on the other side," he said. They left the vault, the sphere now cradled carefully in Raylan's hands. The shimmer had drifted higher, but it still waited above the desert as if watching them. Once on the bike, they turned back toward the ridge they had left hours ago. The desert around them seemed quieter now, as if the world itself was holding its breath. As they traveled, Mira noticed something strange. The sphere was pulsing faintly in her direction, like it could feel her presence. It was a slow, steady rhythm, matching the beat of her own heart. She leaned slightly toward Rollin. "I think it knows me." Raylan didn't look back. "I think it's been waiting for you." Mira didn't ask how he could be so sure. Deep down, she already knew he was right. The gate was waiting. The shimmer was watching, and whatever lay beyond was something meant for them, something that could change everything. The ride back to the ridge felt shorter than before. The desert wind carried a faint hum, almost matching the slow pulse of the crystal sphere in Raylan's hands. Mira sat behind him, her gaze fixed on the shimmer above. It hadn't left its place over the ridge, as if it had been waiting for their return. When they reached the base of the ridge, the blue haze was still there, swirling softly around the rocks. The gate in the crater shimmered faintly in the moonlight, silent and still. They dismounted the bike. Raylan held the sphere carefully, its glow casting a pale light over his face. "This is it," he said quietly. Mira followed him down into the crater. The hum from the sphere grew louder, answering the faint vibration that came from the gate. As they stepped closer, the surface of the gate shifted. The faint outline of a door appeared again, brighter than before. The shimmer in the sky pulsed once, sending a thin beam of light straight into the sphere. The blue and white swirls inside the crystal began to spin faster. Raylan placed it gently against the smooth surface of the gate. The reaction was instant. Deep, steady tone rolled through the air, so low Mira could feel it in her chest. The gate's surface rippled like water, then began to open, not sliding apart like a machine, but unfolding like the petals of a flower. Light poured out, soft but bright enough to wash the crater in silver and blue. Mira shielded her eyes for a moment, then slowly lowered her hand. Beyond the gate was not another room, nor an empty void. It was a space filled with stars, thousands of them, shining as if they were just within reach. It wasn't like looking at the night sky. This felt closer, more real, as though they had stepped into a map drawn in light. Thin threads of gold connected the stars, forming patterns that shifted gently, almost like constellations in motion. At the center of it all floated a large, crystalline array, shaped like a flower made of glass and light. Each of its petals glowed with a different shade, and as they moved, they sent waves of color rippling through the network of stars. Mira's breath caught. "What is this?" Raylan stared at the array. "A beacon," he said slowly. "And not just any beacon. This connects worlds." The shimmer drifted forward through the open gate, becoming part of the star-filled space. It hovered near the beacon, then pulsed 3 times. Instantly, the array responded. The petals shifted, and several of the golden threads lit up brighter, forming paths that stretched toward distant stars. It's showing us where to go, Mira whispered. Raylan nodded. These are not random routes. They're invitations. Invitations. Yes, to visit, to speak, to share. This is not for war. It's for connection. Mira looked at him. You think humans built this? Raylan hesitated. Maybe. Or maybe humans were part of it long ago. Whoever made it, they left. It for someone like us to find. As they watched, the beacon's colors shifted again, and a wave of light washed outward. For a moment, Mira thought she saw shapes, images forming within the golden paths. She saw a human ship, old and worn, traveling through one of the glowing routes. She saw beings of strange shapes and colors, greeting one another on a distant platform. She saw tools, languages, and music being shared across worlds. Then the images faded, leaving only the soft glow of the network. It's a record, Mira said slowly. A history, Raylan agreed. And a promise. The shimmer pulsed again, and this time the sound that followed was different. It was still a tone, but with a rising melody, almost like a question. Mira tilted her head. It's asking something. Raylan closed his eyes for a moment, listening. Then he opened them again. It's asking if we will take the role. If we will keep the beacon open. Her eyes widened. You mean it's offering this to us? Yes. But it's not just a gift, it's a responsibility. If we accept, we'll have to protect it, guide it. And there will be others, human, and not, who might want it for themselves. Mira looked back at the open gate. The network of stars seemed to shimmer brighter, as if waiting for her answer. She stepped closer to the sphere, still embedded in the gate. What happens if we say no? The beacon closes, Raylan said. The routes go dark again. It could be centuries before someone else finds it. The thought of that, of all those paths and worlds going silent, made her chest tighten. She had never thought of humanity as having anything special to offer the universe. But now, maybe, they did. She turned to Raylan. We accept, he smiled faintly. I thought you'd say that. The shimmer pulsed once more, brighter than ever. The beacon responded, sending a wave of golden light down every path in the network. The tones grew louder, layered, like 100 voices singing in harmony. Mira felt warmth spread through her, not from the air, but from the sense that something vast had just opened for them. The gate's surface shifted again, forming a small platform that extended toward the beacon. Raylan stepped onto it and gestured for her to follow. If we're going to do this, we can't stay here. Mira hesitated for just a second, then joined him. The platform began to move slowly, carrying them forward through the star-filled space. Behind them, the desert was quiet, the twin moons still hanging above. The bike remained at the edge of the crater, waiting. Ahead, the beacon's petals shifted, their colors changing like dawn across 100 skies. The golden paths shimmered brighter, reaching out into the darkness as if inviting them to explore. Mira took a deep breath. She didn't know where the first path would lead, but she knew one thing for certain. This was no longer just about following a signal. Now, they were part of it. The platform moved as if it floated on unseen currents, carrying Raylan and Mira deeper into the star-filled space. The beacon towered above them now, its petals of crystal and light slowly rotating, each one glowing with a different color. The golden paths branching from it stretched into the distance, fading into the dark. Mira felt small, but not in a frightening way. It was more like standing in front of the ocean for the first time, vast, endless, but beautiful. As they drew closer, a soft voice filled the air. It wasn't spoken in words, but Mira could understand it clearly in her mind. "Identify yourselves," Raylan answered without hesitation. "We are human." A pause. Then the voice returned, calm but firm. "Humans are known. Records show potential and risk. Access requires proof." "Proof of what?" Mira asked aloud. The voice replied, "Proof that you can act beyond the limits of survival. Proof that you can build, connect, and adapt." The platform slowed and stopped on a small circular space in front of the beacon. As soon as they stepped off, the air around them shifted. The stars and golden paths faded away, replaced by a smooth white surface stretching out in all directions. Mira turned in a slow circle. "Where are we?" "In a test space," Raylan said, scanning the area. Before them, 3 objects appeared. The first was a collection of unfamiliar tools. The second was a set of thin, flat shapes floating in the air. The third was a blank cube that gave off a faint hum. "First task," the voice said. "You must make something useful from what is before you. Purpose and design are yours to choose. No instructions will be given." Mira frowned. "We don't even know what these tools do." "That's the point," Raylan replied. He stepped toward the tools, picking one up. It looked like a rod with a hollow center. When he touched a button on its side, a soft beam of light extended from one end. Mira studied the floating shapes. They shifted slightly when she moved closer, as if reacting to her presence. She reached out and touched one. It felt light, but solid, like holding a sheet of glass that wasn't cold. The cube pulsed gently, the hum growing louder. Mira looked at Raylan. "Maybe it's an energy source." "Could be," he said. "If so, maybe we can make something that uses it." They began to work, experimenting with the tools. The floating shapes could be connected at the edges, forming panels. The tools could fuse them together or cut them apart. After several tries, they created a small frame. Raylan connected the cube to it, and the panels lit up with a soft glow. "What is it?" Mira asked. Raylan smiled faintly. "A light shelter. It could protect someone from wind and sand, and it can move with its own energy." They stepped back as the shelter gently hovered off the ground. The voice spoke again. "Adaptability confirmed. First task complete." The shelter faded away, and the white space shifted again. Now they stood in a place filled with a dozen tall pillars, each one covered in moving symbols. Between the pillars were narrow paths, but some were blocked by shifting walls of light. "Second task," the voice said. "You must find the center. Only one path is correct. You may change the rules if needed." Mira frowned. "Change the rules? How?" Raylan stepped forward, watching the walls. When he touched one, it flickered, but didn't vanish. He tried stepping back, then forward again. The wall shifted slightly. "To the side? They move if you interact with them," he said. "It's not about following the given path, it's about making one." Together they began to test the walls. Some moved with a push, others with a gentle tap. A few only shifted when they both touched them at the same time. They laughed once when a wall moved too far, opening a gap that wasn't supposed to be there. "Guess we're not following the design," Mira said. "That's the point," Raylan replied. Finally, they reached the center. A small, glowing crystal floated above a pedestal. When Mira touched it, the pillars vanished. Creativity confirmed. Second task complete. The space changed one last time. This time, they stood on a high platform overlooking a dark, wide chasm. On the other side was a glowing archway. "Final task," the voice said. "Reach the archway. You may not cross alone." Mira scanned the edge. There were no bridges, no ropes, nothing to use. She glanced at Raylan. "How do we—" He knelt by the edge and tapped the surface. It shimmered faintly, showing the hint of invisible tiles leading out across the chasm. "Not solid," he said. "They vanish if one person steps on them. Alone. So we have to move together," Mira realized. They stepped onto the first tile side by side. It held. The next one shimmered under their feet, but stayed solid. As they moved, Mira realized their steps had to match perfectly. If one of them moved too early or too late, the tile flickered dangerously. Halfway across, a faint wind began to rise, making the tiles sway slightly. Mira's foot slipped, but Raylan caught her arm instantly. "Steady," he said. "We're almost there." They took the last few steps slowly, in perfect sync. When they reached the archway, the tiles behind them vanished completely. The voice returned. "Unity confirmed. All tasks complete." The white space dissolved, and they were back before the beacon. The golden paths glowed brighter, and the petals of crystal shifted to face them. "You have passed," the voice said. "You may now act as keepers of the beacon. Paths will open to you. But remember, others may seek control. The beacon must remain in trust." Raylan gave a small nod. "We understand." The shimmer pulsed one final time, then rose high into the star-filled space, disappearing among the golden lines. Mira looked at the beacon. She felt pride, but also a weight. This wasn't just an adventure anymore. This was a promise to worlds they hadn't even seen yet. Raylan glanced at her. "Ready to see where the first path leads?" She smiled faintly. "Ready." The beacon's petals opened wider, and one golden root began to glow brighter than the rest, stretching into the unknown. They stepped forward together into the light. The golden path ahead glowed like sunlight caught in glass. It stretched into the distance until it faded into the star-filled space. The beacon's petals rotated slowly, casting soft ripples of color across the dark. Mira and Raylan stood at the edge of the platform, staring at the glowing root. They had passed the tests. The voice had called them keepers, but what that meant was still not clear. The soft, calm voice returned. "You may now decide the future of the beacon." Raylan spoke first. "What kind of decision?" "The network can be open or closed. Open paths connect worlds, allow travel, and share knowledge. Closed paths remain hidden, unseen, untouched. Control rests with you until you pass it on." Mira frowned. "Why give us control? We just found this." The voice was quiet for a moment before answering. "The beacon does not choose based on ownership. It chooses based on trust. You found it, you followed it, you worked together. That is enough." Raylan crossed his arms. "If we open the paths, will anyone be able to use them?" "Yes. Friends and strangers alike. Some will come to trade. Some will come to learn. Some may come with other intentions. So there will be danger," he said. "Always," the voice replied. "Connection is risk, but it is also growth." Mira felt a weight in her chest. She looked at the golden path again. It was beautiful, an invitation to step into something bigger than their quiet lives on the mining colony. But she also imagined what could happen if the wrong kind of people found it first. "What happens if we keep it closed?" she asked. "The network sleeps, the paths fade, the worlds remain apart. It could be many lifetimes before another keeper is chosen." Silence settled over the platform. Mira thought about the colony, about the long days of mining and repair work, the endless cycle of the same people, the same stories. She thought about the shimmer in the sky that had started all of this, calling to her when no one else could see it. She turned to Raylan. "I think it should be open." Raylan studied her face. "Even knowing there's risk?" "Yes," she said. "Because if we close it, we take away the chance for something better. And maybe that's what humans are good at. Taking a chance, even when there's risk." For a moment he didn't reply. Then he nodded. "I agree." The voice spoke again. "Then your choice is made." The beacon will open. Paths will brighten. Worlds will see the signal. The golden path before them flared brighter. All around, other paths lit up one by one until the whole network glowed like a living map. Mira could feel it, an energy in the air, like a deep breath before the start of something important. But the voice did not end there. Be aware. When the beacon opens, others will sense it. Not all will come in peace. You will need to be ready, and you will not always be here to protect it. Raylan frowned. Then we need a way to guide who comes through. That will be your work, the voice replied. The beacon will obey your signals, but the choices will be yours. The platform began to move again, carrying them slowly around the beacon. As they passed each petal, they saw faint images form on its surface. Scenes of cities they didn't recognize, skies with strange colors, beings shaped in ways that were both familiar and alien. This is the network, Mira said softly. Yes, the voice confirmed. Each path leads to a place where connection can grow. Some are far, some are near. Some have waited for many generations to be found again. Raylan's gaze lingered on one image, a vast, floating station surrounded by ships of different designs. And these are the worlds we could meet? Yes, if you choose to travel. Mira glanced at him. We're not just guarding this, are we? We're meant to use it. Raylan's faint smile returned. That's what I was thinking. The platform returned to its starting point. The voice spoke one final time. The beacon is now open. The first paths will align with your home, but the signal will reach far. Your time here is finished for now. You may return whenever you choose. Mira looked at the gate that had brought them in. It now glowed softly, the same way it had when they first stepped through. Raylan turned to her. Ready to go back? She hesitated, glancing at the glowing paths one last time. Ready. For now. They stepped through the gate and found themselves back in the crater. The twin moons still hung above the desert, and the blue haze swirled gently around the gate. But something felt different. The air seemed lighter, and when Mira looked up, she could see faint streaks of gold in the night sky, like threads weaving through the stars. The beacon's signal, Raylan said quietly. It's already out, there. They climbed back up the ridge to where the grav bike waited. Mira looked at the horizon. The colony was far away, just a small cluster of lights in the distance. She wondered if anyone there had noticed the change above. As they mounted the bike, a thought struck her. Do you think someone will come here? To this planet? Yes, Raylan said without hesitation. Sooner than we think. The ride, back toward the colony, was quiet. Mira kept looking at the sky, half expecting to see a new shimmer appear. She felt excitement, but also the heavy truth that they had started something much bigger than themselves. When the colony's dome finally came into view, she realized that everything here would feel different now. The mining drills, the narrow streets, the same daily routines, they were still here, but she no longer felt trapped by them. They parked the bike near the repair bay. The colony was still asleep, the streets empty except for the hum of the generators. Raylan locked the bike's console and glanced at her. We don't tell anyone yet. Why not? Because the beacon just opened, and the first ones who arrive might not be friendly. We need to be ready before the colony even knows. Mira nodded. Then what's our first step? He looked at the faint gold lines still visible in the sky. We watch, and when someone comes, we make sure they meet the right kind of humans first. Far above the colony, the beacon's light spread quietly through the dark, carrying the signal across worlds. Somewhere far away, eyes, human and alien, would soon turn toward the little mining colony on Arvin Station. And when they arrived, Mira and Raylan would be waiting. The colony looked the same in the early light, rows of metal buildings under the protective dome, mining drills humming in the distance, and a thin haze rising from the desert floor. But to Mira, everything felt different. The beacon's signal was out there now, traveling through space like a spark, waiting to start a fire. For 3 days, she and Raylan stayed quiet about what they had done. They kept working their usual shifts. She repaired water filters, he maintained the old grav bikes, but each night they met on the ridge outside the dome and watched the sky. The faint golden threads were always there now, weaving through the stars. On the 4th night, they saw it. A tiny flash of movement in the sky, too fast and steady to be a meteor. "It's starting," Rollins said. His voice was calm, but Mira could see the spark in his eyes. By the next evening, they had decided. They couldn't just stay here and wait for whoever might arrive. The beacon was open now, and the network was theirs to use. If they were going to protect it and guide the people who found it, they had to see more of it themselves. That meant leaving the colony. Ryland spent hours in the repair bay, tuning his grav bike for deep space travel. He replaced the standard fuel cells with something far stronger, something the beacon station had provided when they left. Mira packed supplies, water filters, energy rations, tools, and a small metal case the beacon had given her. The case was light, but locked with a strange seal she couldn't open. The voice had told her, "You will know when to use it." The night they left, the colony was quiet. They met at the far gate of the dome. The desert stretched endlessly in front of them, lit by the pale glow of the moons. "You ready?" Raylan asked. Mira took a deep breath and nodded. "Let's go." He swung onto the bike and she climbed on behind him. The engine started with a low hum that sounded almost alive. They sped off into the desert, the wind cool and dry against their faces. Hours later, the ridge where the beacon's gate stood came into view. The blue haze shimmered softly, just as it had before. As they approached, Mira noticed something new, small ripples of gold running through the haze, like sunlight on water. "They're waiting for us," she said quietly. Raylan guided the bike up the slope and into the haze. The world shifted around them. One moment they were in the desert. The next, they stood in the beacon's chamber again, the golden paths stretching away into space. The voice spoke. "Keepers, the first paths are ready. Where will you go?" Mira stepped closer to the edge of the platform. The golden threads curved and crossed, each one leading to a faint point of light. Some were near, others so far they were barely visible. She pointed to a bright path directly ahead. "That one feels right." "Confirmed," the voice said. "Destination, Mavros Waypoint." Raylan raised an eyebrow. "What's there?" "A station where many paths meet. You will find others there, some human, some not. It is a place where first meetings often happen." Mira exchanged a glance with Raylan. "Sounds like where we need to be." The beacon's pedals shifted and the golden path grew brighter. Raylan wheeled the grav bike onto the platform. The engine's hum deepened, syncing with the soft pulse of the path. "Ready?" he asked. Mira smiled. "Let's see what's out there." The platform slid forward, carrying them onto the golden path. The air around them shimmered, and then they were moving, not through space as they knew it, but through a glowing tunnel of light. The stars bent and twisted outside, forming strange patterns as they sped forward. Time felt strange inside the path. It might have been minutes or hours before the light began to fade. When it did, they found themselves emerging near a massive structure floating in the dark. The Mavros Waypoint was unlike anything Mira had ever seen. Rings of silver and glass, rotating slowly around a glowing core. Ships of many shapes and sizes were docked along its edges. Some looked familiar, human designs. Others looked like nothing built by human hands. Rollins slowed the bike as they approached. Looks busy. Good, Mira said. We came here to meet people. As they drew closer, a voice crackled in their comms. Unidentified vehicle. State your purpose. Raylan pressed the comm button. Travelers from Arvin Station, here to trade and talk. There was a pause. Proceed to Dock Ring C. Welcome to Mavros. Dock Ring C was a wide, open platform with clear panels that let them see the stars and the spinning rings above. They set the bike down and stepped off. The air smelled faintly of metal and spice. Mira looked around in awe. People moved through the docking ring, some human, some not. Tall figures with glassy skin, short beings covered in soft fur, and others whose shapes shifted like mist. One of the humans, a tall woman in a deep blue jacket, approached them. New arrivals? Yes, Raylan said. The woman's eyes flicked to the bike. That's not a ship. It's ours, Mira said simply. The woman smiled faintly. Fair enough. I'm Callan, trade officer here. If you're looking for information, you'll want the Hall of Maps. If you're looking for work, the notice boards are near the central lift. They thanked her and began walking. Everywhere they went, Mira noticed people glancing at them, not in hostility but in curiosity. Humans here were clearly not rare, but she could tell there was something about newcomers that drew attention. In the Hall of Maps, a vast dome filled with holographic star charts, Mira saw golden lines woven among the stars, just like the ones in the sky above Arvin Station. She realized the beacon's network was already being marked here. That's us, Raylan murmured. Our signal's already on their maps. They spent the rest of the day exploring, listening, and quietly learning. There were rumors of worlds long lost now returning to contact. Traders spoke of strange signals in the deep. A few whispered about keepers, who had the power to guide the paths. Mira and Raylan kept their part quiet. For now. That night, they returned to the docking ring. The grav bike sat ready. Where next? Raylan asked. Mira looked at the glowing paths in the sky beyond the station. Everywhere. One path at a time. Raylan smiled, started the engine, and together they rose into the dark. The beacon's network stretched out before them. Threads of light-linking worlds, each one a promise waiting to be kept. And as they followed the first golden path into the unknown, Mira felt certain of one thing. Humanity's story among the stars was only beginning.